In yesterday's program, I gave the announcement of an interesting event, dear viewers. The topic was about the anti-Russian sanctions, the distribution of weapons, the Kyrgyz Navy, its owners, unknown companies, and the Azerbaijani businessmen who have created billions of dollars of income for the Putin regime. The world media writes about this, and their identity and suspicion are interesting for you. According to the attack on Ukraine, Moscow is looking for ways to cut back on the sanctions imposed on Russia by the West. The sanctions imposed on the supply of Russian oil since the summer of 2022. Although the price limit on the purchase of Russian oil affects the level of Russian budget revenues, there are many dealers that help cut back on the sanctions, and there are still. One of Russia's largest oil traders is the Nord Axis company, which is listed in Hong Kong. According to the Wall Street Journal, Azerbaijani Edibar Ayub is behind this company. Nord Axis was listed in Hong Kong 9 days before Russia invaded Ukraine. According to the sources of the Wall Street Journal, Edibar Ayub created a large tanker fleet by purchasing ancient ships all over the world and earned more than $1 billion. As a result, Edibar Ayub is now sold to China, India, and a number of other markets, turning it into Russia's largest oil trader. By using the large company's network cut off from the list in Dubai and Hong Kong, Edibar Ayub provided a currency exchange for Vladimir Putin to continue his military operations against Ukraine. As a result, 4 more companies run by Nord Axis and Edibar Ayub were exported to Russia in 2023 for at least $33 billion, which is 1/5 of Russia's exports, according to the Kiev School of Economics. The Wall Street Journal notes that Edibar Ayub flew to Moscow in a private jet several times, cutting off the oil facilities and supplies in 12 countries, cutting off the industries that have actively reflected his negative views, and interviewing a number of people, including the leaders of the energy and shipbuilding companies that work with him or compete with him. Although such activities are not published in the attention of American officials, Russia has not yet been able to prevent this supply chain. At the same time, one of the main issues of Russia's official research structures is that relations between the Nord Axis and the United Arab Emirates, which is located in the United Arab Emirates and which continues its activities in Western countries, and its trader Coral Energy. It should be noted that Edibar Ayub has been working with Coral Energy for several years, and the Coral official said that after the company decided to leave the Russian market in early 2022, it had nothing to do with Edibar Ayub and other companies related to the Nord Axis or Edibar Ayub. However, a number of people working at Coral Energy portrayed the companies related to Edibar Ayub as Coral's pawns in the Wall Street Journal interview. Russian oil officials use the name Coral to refer to the entire network that Edibar Ayub oversees. Interestingly, the Coral company was founded in Singapore by the Azerbaijani Tahir Garayev in 2010. He is also a citizen of Azerbaijan, Russia, and Malta. Tahir Garayev took Edibar Ayub to work in 2014 and then appointed him as an assistant. In 2018, Edibar Ayub left Coral but continued to operate on individual projects of the company until early 2022. In February 2022, the main trader of Sweden's Trafigura company applied for Western sanctions related to its intervention in Ukraine and refused to work with Russian oil. After that, Rosneft applied to Coral. However, Coral officially did not want to jeopardize its ability to borrow from Western banks. As well as his bigger rivals, he said in May that he would stop trading with Rosneft and stop all oil business in Russia. However, as seen from the Wall Street Journal interview, Nord Axis, which was once operated by Coral, replaced him. In July 2022, Trafigura announced that Nord Axis had 10% share in Russia's oil exploration in the Arctic and 10% in the Vostok oil field. According to the Wall Street Journal, Edibar Ayub and Tahir Garayev agreed to trade with Igor Sechin, the head of Rosneft. After the United States and other G7 countries agreed on a $60 price limit for a barrel of Russian oil, the companies led by Ayub bought more than 80 tankers to be used for metal. In fact, the owners of the oil tankers who were subject to sanctions, who traveled without watching the test transponders, and the unknown tankers created a huge difference. According to the International Energy Agency, Russia's oil sales exceeded $180 billion last year, and this shows that the supply chain is active. This is less than $5 billion less than the revenues obtained before the occupation of Ukraine in 2021. Although Nord Axis's dealings in Russia succeeded in July of last year, it continued its oil trade through other institutions run by Valaton, Guran Trading, Pontus Trading, and Edibar Ayub. At the same time, in recent times, Edibar Ayub's relations with Moscow have deepened. He visited Igor Sechin, the head of Rosneft, in Qatar with his foreign colleagues, and they spent a lot of time together in the clouds in Tula. The activities of these men were explained to the Wall Street Journal. It is also known that at the end of 2023, Tahir Garayev also had meetings with Rosneft representatives in Moscow. At the same time, neither Edibar Ayub nor Tahir Garayev were subject to oil sanctions. Coral's spokesman said that the company did not take any questions from the oil paintings. Modern Diplomacy writes that another Azerbaijani, Azim Nuvruzov, who has relations with Coral and Tahir Garayev, was involved in these oil schemes to avoid sanctions from the West. Azim Nuvruzov, who has Azerbaijani, Russian, and Great Britain passports, is also an employee of the Russian Federal Security Service. Thus, large-scale schemes to avoid sanctions from the West, which are organized by Ayub, Tahir Garayev, and Azim Nuvruzov, help the Russian regime to obtain large revenues from oil exports and sow the seeds of death in the Ukrainian land. None of these companies and individuals are independent. They all have a boss, and you don't know who this boss is.